Michael Skye here with Hans Comain. Yeah, we're just recording some dialogue about we're talking about both of us have a passion for working with men, empowering men, liberating men, and we're talking about we're talking about leadership training. We're talking about serving other leaders. We're talking about like a group of men who are serving men, and there's a point in every role that we have as a leader. First of all, every role that we have could be a leadership role. It's just about how much responsibility are we going to take, right? Like in any relationship, let's say with your brother, right? You can say, well, he's reacting this way, so F him and, I'm out of here. Right? Like that's not leadership. And that's reacting to something. It's like every single role in life can be leadership, where you take, and from my perspective, it's taking 100% responsibility. And I'll just share really quick, from my wealth warrior context, it's that's what it is. It's 100% responsibility for every single thing. Not in a law of attraction type of a way, to where, like, if you're poor in the desert of Africa, that you created that reality. Like, I don't believe that. But like 100% responsibility. Like, the world around me is the way it is, and I have something to do about it now. Like, I can, like that person in Africa, like I can do something about that if I choose. So it's just like there's no room for complaining. There's no room for excuses. Um, Everything is just absorbed. Turn it into like mastery, upgrading your ability to create what you want. And three main areas I identify as: warrior, creator, and ally. And a warrior is fundamentally about your relationship to yourself and or to pain, to reality. It's like facing everything, avoiding nothing, and standing for your values or your people. It's just that it's essentially max like awareness and self-honesty and courage and willingness to act. And then creator is like, again, it brings with it warrior, 100% responsibility for everything, but it focuses on our ability to create, right? Especially to create our future. So it's more about like responsibility for the future. And then ally, which really fundamental is the warrior and the creator, and then ally is like our relationship to other people. Um, so if I'm your ally, I won't let anything stop me from standing for the ultimate you. None of your bullshit and how I feel about that is an okay reason for me to back down from standing for you and your ultimate best self. Like there's no excuse for me, to back off being your ultimate ally. And all of those are like extreme responsibility. And you were talking about how, like, in your role serving these men, that when they want to quit the program, or they're not playing up to speed or whatever, it's disappointing for you, it's frustrating, makes you angry. You want to kill them, you want to back out, you want to say screw you guys and keep going, whatever it is. And but the same can be said for any single role or relationship in life, or any responsibility in life, that if we don't, I'll say, have a place to stand, right? If we don't have a place to stand where, like, the responsibility is ours, and for me, responsibility, when it comes with what I call honor, it's like it's a joy, it's a pleasure to own that responsibility. And but if we don't have a place to stand in any single relationship to reality, like we're broke or we're fat, or a relationship has been a nasty breakup with someone in the family or whatever, if we don't have a place to stand, then it's like we are affected by the whim of the moment, right? This happened and I feel this way about this, so because I feel this way about this, I'm going to do X. And so external events and our internal emotional reactions are what's leading us. We're not leading, those things are leading. And when we have a place to stand, and so it's kind of like being tossed around on the waves, right? And having a place to stand is like being a lighthouse on the shore, and it's like we're on the rock, and we're shining the light. And not only do the waves not affect us in the least bit, our stand, who we are, but we're also that beacon, that strength for others, because they can see us just standing. And so, yeah. So anyway, I mean, we were just going to talk about um, kind of you finding a place to stand in relationship to your group, right?
Oh, I love the concept of leadership, and it's one of the themes in the course, and I say it's the number one concept or yeah, concept that encompasses everything it means to be a great seducer. My work is in seduction because I think it's a essential, pivotal ingredient of any thriving relationship, including the one you have with yourself. And leadership is key, is the most important concept there. And few men really understand how vast the concept of leadership really goes. It's taking care of everything and everyone. It's taking charge of everything and everyone. And so it's taking care and taking charge of all the relationships, the people you meet, the people you date with, the people you have long-term relationships with, also the people you are in community with. And that really pertains to my situation, where I, by default, and sometimes against my own will, am seen as the leader of the group. And I have a lifelong of battling with what is the most powerful way to show up in leadership. Um, I have a love-hate relationship with the people in my community. I had it before when I was playing football, and in my football teams, I was the a lot of times the captain. And I went back and forth between really wanting to take care and do everything for everyone, and then just wanting to kill everyone because they weren't as professional enough, or they were complaining, or they weren't as committed as they said they were. And so that goes my whole life. This is a learning, a battle and a learning for me to show up as a leader in my most powerful way. And yeah, this week I saw a great light when we were talking about the idea of standing or taking a stand, finding a place to stand. In my course, it's a very intense course. It's a very life-changing course, transformative course, and it's a very intense one. And always, we're with 10 guys. Part of them, or a couple of them, along the way, at some point, they want to give up. Before they come on the course, they make a commitment to write it out for at least for the time of the course, and become extraordinary with women. That's the bigger scope. But it only takes a couple of weeks before we always have a couple of guys that want to get out of it, or feel like they want to get out of it, and share that they want to get out of it. And then and the internal battle with me always begins there. Should I keep him? Should I leave him behind? Because they're like, I have this part of me that wants to save them, and I have the part of me that wants to leave them behind because they're breaking their commitment, or they're betraying me and the group and themselves, and I feel like we're in battle. We have an enemy across from us, and we're about to go in, and here's this guy who should be on my side and fight with me, and he's like vying for my attention. I can't do it. Help me, and I have to go into battle, and this guy needs my help. And part of me wants to like kill him right there and focus on the enemy, or focus on the battle at hand. And I've done that also. I've done that, but I'm never feeling completely free. I'm never feeling liberated and empowered by that until we talked, and we talked about the power of honor, the power of taking a stand, finding a place to stand. And all of a sudden it hit me that I could take a stand, that I could go and stand in the place of being the guy that will do everything he can to keep every guy into the course, to leave no one behind, no matter what. Even if they want to leave, even if they threaten to leave, even if they feel like leaving, even if they're on their way out, that I will be the guy who will do everything I can, who will not let that happen. I may fail, but I'm going to try everything, and I won't stop at anything to keep him in the course. And I realized the moment I saw that as a possibility, I also instantly felt the power of that. I could feel it. You know? I could feel like, wow, this is great. And I didn't have to decide it no more. It was very obvious all of a sudden that making a stand for being that guy is the right thing to do. And so I announced it to the group, and it felt very liberating, very empowering, very freeing. So that was a very ad hoc, very life and from life taken or from leadership practicing instance where I saw the power of taking a stand and show up more powerful as a leader.
You know, the finding a place to stand or taking a stand, one of the things that I find so powerful about that is it fundamentally changes who you are. It changes your identity because, you know, when someone's thinking about leaving the group, you know, the real question is like, well, who am I, right? And who am I committed to being for this person? Am I the one who leaves them behind, or am I the one who sees it through? And we're kind of torn, right? We might have some feelings one way and some thoughts one way and some feelings and thoughts the other way. And so there's this conflict within us. So it's like we're torn within. So we have one force inside that says go this way, another force that says go this way. So there's no clear leadership even within ourselves. Maybe sometimes we go this way, sometimes we go this way, and it's not powerful. It's not clear. There's no peace. And then, of course, the people around us, they see that wishy-washiness, the back and forth, and maybe the resentfulness about that situation. And so ultimately, right, so it's about self-leadership first. And so, you know, when we take a stand, it's like, okay, sometimes I may feel this way, sometimes I may feel this way. And regardless, in the face of feeling this way, whatever the hell I feel, who I am is the one who stands here for this, no matter what, right? And that feeling, and you can probably sense it just as I say it. I mean, I feel it as I say it. Just a bit of inspiration, you know, a bit of honor, what I would call a feeling of honor. And it's that feeling that can instantly unify yourself, right? Bring yourself together, right? A simple remembering of who you are. I showed that clip of me supporting my I Thrive business partner, reminding him who he is, you know, what he's been facing and standing for. And it's just like, inside of him, it's like, oh, yes. And it's like his spirit is coming back and tears pouring down his face because he was lost. He was like, am I really a quitter? Am I a failure? You know, it's like this old beliefs and whatever. It's like, I thought I could do it, but I'm a shit, you know? And he's like lost to himself. And so, yeah, part of the power of the honor work is like, it doesn't even need to be you that does it, you know? Like your ally can remind you, can reflect back to you who you are in a way that generates that feeling of honor.
I may go off on a limb here, but I think I just realized it, how identity carving it is. You know, we sometimes think we discover our identity or we create it, you know, like, but by taking a stand, that's the exact way how I like to see we carve our identity, our authenticity, our personality, who we are to ourselves and to the world. You know, with every instant you carve it like it's in there, like a statue is carved into a big brick or stone. It's in there. You have to carve it. You know, so it's discovered and created at the same time. And taking a stand is really a great way to carve your identity, to carve your personality, to carve how you want to show up in the world. Very proactive, and yeah, I really love it.
as you were saying that, one thing that's present for me is, we live very individualistic lives now, cut off from tribe, cut off from our people, cut off from our ancestors and from future generations, cut off from like nature as our home. And, many of us even living in a place that's not really where our ancestors lived, and it's not where our future generations will live. And so there's just disconnection and separation all around us. And, and the moment that we say, like, in the face of this, in the face of all of this, this is who I am for my people, it's like you've just reinserted yourself back into that ancient story of, like, I mean, most people who lived before us, they were not living some individual tale told on Instagram. They were inside of the story of their people, some great story, and they had some place, some role to fill for their people. And so, yeah, it's, I can see that with you, with your guys, it's like, I just want to leave them behind, but, who are you for your people, right? Who are you for your people? And then when you find that, it's like, then the frustration, the whatever, it's like, that's not only does it not take you off your path, the feelings that previously would have divided you and pulled you astray from your purpose now they're part of the building block of honor. It's like, without the adversity, without the challenge, it doesn't give you anything to be. There's no heroic thing to be for your people. You actually need the pushback, you need the obstacle, you need the fear.
Yeah, it's since I made the decision, the same things come up, like the same situations come up, but now there are opportunities to feel that honor from me, and to reaffirm my stand and to show up the way I want to show up. It's fantastic.
And those, each of those things that previously might have had you not be who you are, each of those now is a defining moment of your story. It's a defining chapter, right? So-and-so was going to bail, and I felt like saying, fuck you, And then I remembered who I am, and I came back for him, and, now look at where he is, right? Like, he's a solid member of the tribe and going forward. It's like each of those new actions in line with that stand is backing up, solidifying that story of who you are to yourself and to your people, who are also going to tell the right? So it's tremendously powerful.
I have the same in my I realize as we're doing that I have the same in my relationships. Like, I have a lifelong journey of trying to understand women and knowing how to handle women, and my masculine brain thought of issues that would come up in relationships as you deal with them, and then it's dealt for once and for all, But what I realized over time is that the moments where you have disagreement, where you have discord, they're not necessary evil for a relationship. Really, they're the essential gateways to growth. They're essential gateways where you can grow your loyalty, where you can grow your understanding, where the woman can also feel that who she is to you, who you are to her, where she can feel the relationship. And the moment I saw that when discord comes up, it really is sometimes a provoked situation to understand where we're at for each other. And then I saw the opportunity that comes with each one of them. I no longer thought of it, fuck, I have to go through this again. No, I was like, yes, here we go. So it went from necessary evil to essential gateway to the relationship itself. So.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. It's definitely, how can you really trust someone until you've been through the fire together, How do you know if they're going to run? How do you know if they're going to betray you? How do you know if they're going to just disappear and never come back until you have that conflict, right? And
your relationship starts with your first disagreement.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Myself, I'm sitting here in Kenya, and I just gotten through an epic challenge. I committed to this I Thrive business for 18 months. That finished the end of November. I had a big launch with a huge challenge to reach a certain financial target. failed to meet that target, but nonetheless, just been here exhausted and just enjoying life and paradise. And uh, and I'm swayed this way and that, not just by laziness, but by desire and pleasure, and by, just feeling tired, exhausted from the previous commitments. But it's not even like I'm necessarily reacting to, without a place to stand. It's like without a mission, right? It's like without something bigger to have you say. Stephen Covey used to. Stephen Covey would say, the enemy of greatness, the enemy of the great is the good, meaning that we often make excuses. Well, hey, I'm doing pretty good, right? As a reason not to be great, like this is good enough, isn't it? No, not if what you want is greatness. And for me, that's actually what I'm missing now, right now in my life. It's I'm missing as like an opportunity. That's like there's a void. What's my next mission? And where's my place to stand in relationship to myself? Like, who am I for myself now? And as I look to a lot of guys, including myself when I was younger. I was going to say a lot of guys in today's world. You ask the question like, who am I for my people? A lot of us couldn't even answer like, who are my people, right? Let alone identify any kind of sense of clear, bold role of honor in relationship to anyone, even not even necessarily to ourselves. And this huge void is there in our lives that we don't realize most of us is missing, because everyone else around us, most of the people around us don't have it either. And we just kind of think that's floundering around and chasing our whims and responding to laziness and whatever else, this, sense sometimes that life is meaningless, or it's only about chasing pleasure, or it's whatever. We look around and we just, well, this is how life is, right? But what's clear to me, because I grew up in a world where there was a really, really, really clear who my people are. And there was a really, really clear role, like, who am I for my people? And so like when that all got called into question and I left, I left that tribe, so to speak, the missing for me was huge. Like I felt it because I'd really had it strongly before. Really powerful roles of honor and all this, and future and ancestors, and mission from God and everything. And so it's it's I'm just thinking right now in this moment, like, to bring this kind of awareness to men who are, like, guys will judge themselves for like maybe not have any direction or motivation, or as if they should have a ton of motivation just to go achieve their own goals, or just to do what their desire is, or just to be a star on Instagram, or a success financially or something. Like all these things, I think in the context of human history are bizarre, like to just be about yourself and doing your own thing, and it's bizarre. And it's, to me, it's like, no wonder there's a lack of motivation, no wonder there's laziness, or no wonder you're just content to sit in the basement and play video games. It's like, and what are the video games? The video games are almost all a fantasy about another time when you have a great role of honor for your people. You could be a hero for your people. So it's like the modern world seems not to be structured in a way to offer that, but the video games are.
I'm just bouncing this off of you. I wrote this in the beginning of my book, that a part of it was that before we had clear enemies, when we went to war, or whatever was that we were fighting. And it seems like in today's world, it's like an invisible monster of boredom and mediocrity and stagnation. And it's lurking in every corner, but we don't really see it. And that's a huge part of the issue. Like we're like trapped into this beige kind of half-assed thing where we don't really know what we're fighting anymore. We don't know if there's anything to fight. And the redefining of that, or like making it clear what the enemy is, who our people are, you know, what our history is. That seems to be the whole work, you know. And I wonder about that. I wonder, and I see it for myself too, you know. I wonder about that, like what it is, you know, who's that enemy? How do I get to this place? You know, how do I rise up from this kind of like beige, lukewarm feeling, you know?
Yeah, a lot of there's something I have a very visceral reaction to in life when I'm in places where what's reflected back to me is mediocrity. You know, I have a visceral reaction to it. I can't stand being there. You know, to be in a place in the suburbs somewhere where no one really cares for their property. You know, you just drive by and everyone's half-assing everything. You know, like if you're poor, great, but fucking take care of what you got. You know, and at least have it reflect that you give a fuck. You know, and it annoys the hell out of me to be in situations where it's like people are living lives of compromise. Um, back in my 20s, I was like super, super, super aggressive in my orientation towards the world and towards life. And I wrote this poem, which for me, poetry was more like lyrics to rise up. It wasn't like, you know, writing love poetry or something. It was like, ah. And I had this one, and I can't believe it, but I've lost the original. I can't remember the whole thing, but it was titled "Breathe, Brothers, Breathe," and it's something like, you know, it's like stepping among the ruins of the power structure. So I was envisioning like the power structure has collapsed, and you know, walking past the bodies of my younger brothers, you know, not bloodied bodies wounded from fighting, just trying, you know, and that sense of like, you know, meaningless and hopelessness in so many of the young men that I just saw around me, and just this like wanting to reach out, just fucking give them my hand, fucking pull them up, like rise up, and and back then for me, like everything was this almost everything was this warrior kind of context. And you know, it's something that's shamed today, you know. Men are too masculine. There's too much about war. It's too much about fighting. It's too much about competition. And it's something, you know, masculinity in that sense is really being shamed in many parts of the world now. But I really view it as something that, yeah, it's essential, I think. Just that context of, I'm not going to say it's essential for everyone, but I mean, even when we remark about the human spirit, you know, whether it's Mother Teresa or a Nazi concentration camp survivor or something, it's like what we're honoring is that someone faced with great adversity, great difficulty, pain, fear, hopelessness, desperation, they faced it all and they rose up. You know, they stood strong, they rose up. And to me, that's the essence of like what a warrior is. It's not about actual fighting with a sword or something. It's about being willing to, it's about facing and standing. And that's like the essence of a warrior. And it's also what I've identified as the roots, the two fundamental ingredients that generate the feeling of honor. And so the warrior, the essence of the warrior is absolutely essential And then I would say most young men today do not have any relationship to what I would call this inner authority, this felt inner authority that I refer to as honor. And it's a huge missing. And like if you haven't tasted it and known it and if you haven't had it as like a loving, trusting guide in your life, you don't even know what's missing.
Mm-hmm.
You're suffering from the missing, but you don't know what's missing.
Right. Yeah, I've been not dabbling, but like trying to find my way in it. My book is The Way of a Seducer, a code of honor in the land of women, because I have from reading the samurai, and I felt there was something there, and I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I do believe a man can, the abundance of beautiful woman feels through her beauty. A man can only attain through his integrity. And so it's that important, not only like to feel it, but really to be successful and feel abundant in your life. That integrity, that honor is essential. So I was very happy to see that you're doing honor work, and you really like went into it and worked with it. What's strong in what you have is the practices to really get to the point where you can feel honor. That's I think a very important and very powerful feature for a guy who has never really felt it before, to go through an exercise and come at the end and say, fuck, well, that feeling, that's the feeling of honor, and how much it can do for a man. So I think that's very, very valuable.
What's interesting is that feeling we don't even have a word for it in English. And there's no word for it, we have words for all sorts of feelings, at one point, years and years ago, I started compiling like news articles and stuff of people talking about this feeling. It's very clear. It's this powerful emotion that they're feeling, and they're struggling to describe it, They're just like, I felt so good, but there's no word. You try to put words on it, but like there's no word. And without a word, without a way to name it, it's really hard to find it, to know it, to achieve it, to reclaim it, to identify it, And so that's one of the challenges that we're faced with today is, very little do we even talk about honor. And to the extent that we do, it's often confused. Cross-culturally, there's different things that are translated as honor in English. Like you have honor killings in the Middle East, which they're not talking about this feeling that you and I are talking about. They're talking more about what I would say is the respect of the community. And for example, if your daughter disobeys you, she doesn't respect you. If you let her get away with it, no one else in the community is going to respect you. If no one else respects you, you could be left without food, without money. You could be left to ridicule. You could be killed. You could be ostracized. So it's very much a survival thing that I would identify as like respect. And so, I mean, it's a terrible thing, but like a killing of your daughter, if you're a Muslim in these situations, what it is doing is it's reestablishing a respect. It's saying, you cannot disrespect me. And but we'll call that honor killings, and then, well, who wants to fucking identify with honor, if that's what an honor killing is. And then I remember I had a friend in Germany who was doing my work in Germany. She was trying to translate it, but she was struggling to find words that weren't like already used by the Nazis in World War II, and like, how is she going to attract people to her workshop using words that, are identified with like the Nazi regime and stuff like this. And
you're talking about honor, Michael, and I try to talk about seduction. We're both messed up, man, in our attempt. But as you're talking about that, I think like to find that honor and what we can stand for, is the fight of our lives. That is, and the absence of that is the enemy, and it's a way harder fight than the fights that men fought before, because that enemy is so unclear, like that absence of honor is so. And and that quest for that meaning, for honor, for relevance, for that feeling, it's not a clear one, and therefore it is such an important uh, fight to me. It's the fight of our lives for most of us men, I would say.
Yeah, and if you don't know if you don't know what you're missing or what the goal is, or you don't know when you're winning or whatever, you're almost destined to lose. I mean, how are you supposed to win a fight that you don't even know? Like, it's like playing a sport when you don't. Well, how do you score points? I don't know. But and definitely, there's times in our life when we feel it, and we might just lack words for it. It's such a need. It's such a desperate need in our world that most Hollywood movies are about this feeling. Actually, it's a tale of someone losing their honor, losing their way, and then needing to wake up to their situation, face it, and make a stand. And the story is this tale of them finding the courage to face it, take a stand for their values, themselves, for their people, and then they're transformed, right? Once they do that, they're no longer who they were before, because the one they were before was the one who was not facing and standing. Now they're the one who's facing and standing, and their future is wide open, right? And Hollywood writers, I mean, you're European, and I think a lot of Europeans kind of poo-poo Hollywood movies, like, oh yeah, it always has a happy ending, and it's so cheesy and everything else. But there's something remarkable about I would say America, that aspect of American culture. Um, there's plenty of criticisms I have about my country and my culture, but that one thing, it's just the tale of the human spirit, you know, and people who don't want to have the responsibility to be the hero in their own life, in their own situation, for their own people. Yeah, they're not going to want to watch the Hollywood movies, because it just reminds them how they're not fucking being who they could be. And
Right.
one criticism I have about Hollywood movies is especially nowadays, they often they get close to like really evoking this feeling of honor, but in order to make people not feel too bad about really not being heroes in their own life, they have to make the heroes idiots, and sometimes they make them like so that they accidentally save the world. I remember this what started out as a great movie. It was with Bruce Willis and a bunch of other stars, and was Armageddon. It was this asteroid is all humanity's gonna die, and this ragtag group of oil, oil rig, what do they call those guys? And they just work. They're just dirty, foul-mouthed, goofballs who work on these oil rigs. And what they need is that they've realized that, okay, to destroy this asteroid, we're essentially going to have to drill down into the asteroid and then explode it. Like, that's how we had to save Earth. So that's why they needed these oil guys. And so you got like these NASA guys who've like trained all their life to be the ultimate, individuals and experts, and just excellence is the top of their game. And then you have these crew of just like misfit idiots, and they portray the guys from NASA as the ones who almost make it so the mission fails, and it's the idiots who save the day, almost despite themselves. They just kind of happen to just do it. It's like, oh, you fucking assholes, because you could have really created a story here, really evoked that, And then there were moments in the story that were epic with honor, like when Bruce Willis decides to sacrifice himself and send his daughter's fiance home instead of having his daughter's fiance sacrifice himself. And he's left there, and he blows up the asteroid and saves humanity, but he dies himself. And then like who he is for his daughter, is that was a really powerful moment. But this feeling of honor, like we need it so much. We can just be we can just like watch Hollywood movie after Hollywood movie or play video game after video game that gives us this sense, because it's missing in our everyday world. And part of what you said is like, oh, who's the enemy? We're not fighting the neighboring tribe. Life is relatively easy. We're living like kings compared to anyone else in history, even if we're poor in the Western world. And but without that adversity, without that enemy, without that difficulty, there's really no honor available. Very little honor available
But
compared to what could be.
what a great opportunity we have on our hands, Michael, in this day and age. Because of that, imagine we can make it clear what the enemy is. Imagine we could show that adversity. Imagine we could bring back men to honor. It will be chosen and fought for. It must be even more powerful than before when adversity was clear, when the enemy was clear.
Hans, what I'm sensing, and we've been talking about like why have we been drawn to each other? What work are we here to do together? I'm feeling like the formulation of a first kind of mission to begin to articulate the enemy. The enemies. Like a series of videos that articulates the enemy, and there's multiple values that men tend to be missing and not fighting for, and one of them is respect. There was a guy on your call the other day, and he was in a relationship with a woman who was clearly disrespecting him, and he didn't know how to go about it. He didn't know how to deal with it. In fact, he was dealing with it in a way that was just causing more disrespect from her. But this is something that respect is something that is essential for a man. It is absolutely essential. If you don't have self-respect, if people don't respect you, you're not respected in the world. Good luck getting anything in life. Good luck, and good luck even preserving your honor, because you're going to be shamed so much. You're going to be shamed so much that honor is going to be extraordinarily difficult to come by. So just talking about those threats, the things that threaten your self-respect as a man, or the aspects, people, situations in society that are disrespecting you, and the ways that you've learned to cope with that without actually drawing those lines and those boundaries of self-respect. Those are threats. I've watched a lot of Jordan Peterson videos recently, and one of the things he's speaking to is like, and he gets teary-eyed when he's talking about it, but he's like, no one's talking to young men about responsibility anymore. And these young men, they just light up, they eat it up, they want the responsibility. What they want is honor. They want this feeling of honor that can come with, Dr. Jordan Peterson says, carry the heaviest load imaginable. The heaviest load, it's a call to honor, to these young men, and these young men are drawn to it, obviously, naturally. And he's also, I think he also attracts a lot of, young men to what he says, because he's someone who in interviews will not tolerate the disrespect. And it's actually very uncommon to see anymore, is a man who stands up and he holds those boundaries. He won't be disrespected. He will not be disrespected. And he also does it without disrespecting himself, acting like an idiot, there are a lot of people on TV and the YouTube and everything else today, social media, who, maybe they're defending themselves or they're speaking up to be with it. Hans, did I lose you?
I am here.
You there? Someone called me on Skype and my screen changed.
I saw the screen
Anyway.
light up. I'm here.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who, like, social media, Twitter, everything else, because people are disrespecting you, so you just use that as a license to disrespect them. And in the process, what you're doing is licensing more disrespect towards yourself, and it just continues. And what they see in Jordan Peterson is someone who is holding those boundaries of respect and respectful conversation. And so the respect and the honor, and anger is associated with respect, right? Like someone's violating your boundaries. You and I have talked about these three, honor, anger, and desire, as powerful forces, especially I think really powerful things for men to fully reclaim in today's day and age. And but the honor, it has to do 100% with respect. Someone's threatening your people, someone's violating your boundaries, someone's stealing your resources, someone's humiliating your wife, whatever it is. Like anger is a call to respect, to establish those lines of respect. And so I don't know what shape this might take, but I think this would be a great thread in a YouTube channel. Is just one by one identifying these threats.
Yes, I think what you said in that light at the beginning, it's good, and it's the enemy of greatness. It's good enough, and it's there all the time. I see it in my life, So, maybe it's not perfect, but I'm comparing, and it's good, and that's not great.
Yeah.
That's not
and
great.
even goodness, like thinking of yourself as a good guy, and I think this is one of the things that Donald Trump has really exposed, like here in the States and American politics. What a lot of people see is like the people on the right, like more the kind of religious right, the men who really have, want to see themselves as being good men who are standing for something, and these principles, these American principles of democracy and fairness and everything else. I think one of the dramas playing out right now is you see Trump, who was willing to, he's like, I don't care if anyone sees me as a good guy. I don't care. I don't give a shit. I'm going to get done what I think needs to get done. And, he's making a lot of people outraged, a lot of people reacting to him. But one of the things that is drawing like a lot of young men in his direction, especially, is that they're seeing a man who is no longer apologizing. Because like a lot of the tactics from the left used to be good man if you don't support this policy, and shaming you. It's like that. You're not a good man. You're not a good man. And, women will often do this in relationship with a guy, right? They'll use this. Like if a guy thinks he's a good guy, he wants to believe he's a noble guy. He's a good guy. He's a good man for his people. They'll use that to manipulate him in whatever way. And, and I think to be truly great as a leader, you have to risk some people, some of the time, judging you as not a good guy in order to do the right thing. You can't sit there trying to be approved of. He was a good guy by everybody, and yeah. Oh man, there's so much to talk about here.
Men who are all the great men in history, most of them were outrageous at some time, because it comes with the vitality, and someone who's trying to be proper, he never achieves great things. Greatness is achieved through outrage and being fanatic to the thing that you want. And all great men that I know, they allow themselves to be outrageous at some point. Not doing what other people think, not being proper.
Well, I know for myself, like growing up really religious, I mean, it's one of the things that, in fact, this feeling of honor is often, for me, it's like a spiritual feeling. It's really closely associated with being a man of God, a good, upstanding, let's say, Christian man or religious man, right? And so that goodness and honor they're often married and what I see with a lot of young men who, and not just young men, but men today who they want to maintain that idea of goodness in the eyes of other and in their own eyes. They're very easily manipulated in the world, in relationship. It's probably why there's a lot of truth in that saying, good guys finish last, because they're trying to maintain this image of goodness in the eyes of others. And which really just leads to a lot of weakness and compromise, and actually not nobly and courageously standing up for what you believe is right. At the times when you can stand for really what your inner truth is, and your knowing and your sense of what's fair and what's right, is in conflict with your image as a good man. So many times we'll tend to want to preserve our image. It's not because we're just fundamentally weak or bad people. It's because images, maintaining a certain image is so valuable. We're social beings, right? If we're viewed as not good people for the tribe, not members of the tribe, whatever, not trustworthy, that can come with a lot of consequences. But I don't know, Hans, one of the things I'm really interested in is speaking to men about, like, it's like you're helping men become better with women. And it's those types of situations that I'm really now in my life returning to being most interested in helping, not changing the world or saving humanity or saving the planet or something like this. But like, I think that even if you wanted to change the world, do it by supporting one individual at a time, to be more courageous in their life, to be more self-honest, to be,
As we talk about this, Michael, I can both sense the incredible importance of concepts like honor. They're that important. They seeped into my work quite notably even before. But on the other hand, I also realize how little points of reference that I have, how much there is to study and to understand what's the relationship between honor, responsibility, making a stand. Who am I for my tribe, my people? Who do I want to be? How do I want to be remembered by the women in my life? I see how uncharted territory that is, and that maybe is the challenge. That's where the honor lies. Is really in the question of what it is, what is that integrity? What is that honor? What is it to me? And really dedicate my time and resources to understand that better. Maybe that is the story of redemption. Maybe that is my hero story,
Yes. Yeah, it's a heroic challenge to reclaim your honor. Like, think of it as a birthright. I believe that sense of honor is fundamental to human guidance, to I don't know, living happily and successfully as a man on the earth. And if it's not been given to you, taught to you, the first quest is to go out and seek it, find it, reclaim it, mine. It's mine, and no one's fucking ever taking it away from me again. It's fucking mine, And to me, like, honor is, it's not the only form of like internal authority, right? But it's a fundamental aspect of authority, like authorship, right? Being author of your reality, of your life story. Without that powerful force in your life, man, it's much, 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 much more difficult to write your story. To write your story the way you want to write it, to live it out, how in a way that would make you feel good, which is to make you feel honored.
Well, we got a battle on our hands, man. So I'm excited to, and maybe the next time we can talk about that. But I'm excited that there's a prospect of us being allies in that, because I felt very lonely in that quest, and I get a lot of fire, power. I feel very invigorated to know that someone else is like on that quest, wants to battle with me, you know, wants to explore that sea with me also. You know, it's a very, very strong feeling for me to have someone else, to have a possible ally. It's very strong for me.
Yeah, brothers and brotherhood. It's also something that's missing for most of us men in the West these days. You know, my eye stands were designed as like an honor ceremony. It's all about reclaiming, like fully, deeply, profoundly, and forever reclaiming honor as yours, and something that's a living guiding force inside of you. And grown men weep. Grown men weep to reclaim it. You know, so it's you know, and maybe we can start summing this up, but I see honor a lot of times, you know, like I used to really judge men who are living their lives without being directed by a sense of honor. It's like, how could you're like, I couldn't treat another man or a brother in a certain way because I have this sense of honor. It's like, how could you act without this? But so many have never been given it in the first place. And I think fundamentally it's a gift. I think fundamentally it's something that's passed on to you from your elders, from your tribe, from your tradition. Um, and it's a gift of nature, actually, because we all have it we all can access it from within our body, our beingness. And so it's fundamentally a gift, and it's something I can give, I get to give. And what I found is that the more I give it, the more I receive it. So it's the act of being in service to other men, gifting it, is it's a path of abundance, because the more you give it, the more you receive it. And with brotherhood as well, the more you give it to your brothers, the more you receive it, and then the more brothers you get. And that's part of what I would call natural wealth. These things that are normally in a healthy human existence, these things are there: brotherhood, honor, you know, deep connection to ancestors and tradition. These sorts of things are natural wealth that mostly we're missing today. So yeah, so in a way we're you know, reach out to our brothers who are in this matrix of no honor, no brotherhood. And you know, it's very easy to take advantage of a man who has no access to honor and no brothers, right? No role of honor for his people. It's easy to take advantage of that guy because he's all by himself and he has no greater people, no purpose to live for, to die for. And so yeah, there's many individual men out there, and young men and boys, really being taken advantage of, either explicitly or by default, you know. And yeah, I feel a tremendous sense of honor in getting to show up, go back for them, you know, be that big brother.
How in your experience or your expectation, how easy it is for you, how hard is it for you to bring a man who's been by himself, individualistic, without honor sake, to bring him into a community of a brotherhood of men where where honor plays an important part?
You know,
And my question is this: without 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 a request for it, without a readiness, let's say from his part and explicitly spoken, uh, how easy it is to, or how hard it is for you to show to men what's lacking, to show to men what the enemy really is. How hard or how easy is that for you?
I think it's a lot easier for me now than, you know, it ever has been, but it's been a lifelong quest for me to share it, you know. But it's mostly about generating that feeling of honor inside of a man, because it's that honor is like a huge, unmistakable, resounding internal yes, you know, from the heart, like wide open to life and reality and brothers and everything. You know, it's just like a yes, you know. So like being able to generate this feeling and then communicate to a man what it is and how it is generated. Give him access to being able to, because it's experienced immediately as pleasure, strength, peace, power, and authority. And so it's something that once you feel it, you want to keep it. You know, you don't want to lose it. You want to keep it. So at that point, you know, it's once that part is done, the other part is like easy relatively, because men are hungry to learn. They want to keep it. But you know, but then we go back into these lives that we have that are often structured around keeping us comfortable, and a comfortable life is no life is a life without much honor, really. But most of us have designed our lives to be relatively comfortable, to avoid facing ourselves in reality to the extent that we could, and to avoid feeling that call to responsibility, because it comes with a lot of, you know, risk, a lot of danger. You know, like to really face reality and the threats to your values and yourself and your people. It would mean naturally feeling called to step up and do something, be someone great for your people, and that's fucking scary, you know. So it's also confronting, you know. You can feel that profound sense of honor, and it often comes like it feels like a calling, you know, to be great, but it's also fucking scary as shit, you know. It could be scary. I mean, once you found that place to stand for your guys, it's like, oh, there's no backing out now, you know. Like in times when you're not present to that feeling of honor, and you just remember your commitment, your stand, it could be like, fuck, what did I sign myself up for? You know? And it can be relatively easy to downgrade back to a life and a reality where you're not on the line for so much. You're not committed in such a big way, you know?
To me, my experience is this may be a personal one, you know, but to me, the being reminded of the commitment and like see the honor just around the corner, that that never scares me. Then, when I'm at that point, you know, I instantly know what to do, and it feels good, and I'm like, I don't have the what the fuck, you know. But I do. The danger to me is not being reminded of that commitment, not being reminded of the honor, and like sliding back into a kind of goodness, mediocrity, you know, without really noticing it. That is the danger.
Yeah, and for me, you know, with the wealth warrior kind of world or context I created some time ago, the idea was like your life as a business, meaning that, you know, it's a system that you're creating and designing to achieve certain results. And like you want to, we could say, stay awake. You want to stay present to honor. You want to stay driving for greatness. You know, you want to preserve and keep all of these things. And so how can you do it? You know, and that's the great challenge. And you know, so there's different systems and tools and concepts and, you know, things like allies and everything else. It's all a response to that question, you know. How can I maintain that awareness, that drive, that call to be great, and how can I put in place systems that remind me when I'm being less than who I could be? um, yeah, I mean, men today, we're stuck in this place. Not only are we missing everything, it's like if we want to get it back, we might have to create it from scratch, you know. I mean, there are some things like you could join the military, which is even becoming more and more compromised in today's world, you know, as in the search for equality, you know. um, you know, like bringing women into the military. Once you bring women into what has been an all male space, Um, Men start behaving differently, communicating differently. Everything it changes changes what was available by having just a sacred all male space. And and often what we want to preserve, what the value becomes in the presence of women. Men tend to want to make women comfortable and protect them, and so they'll change their behavior to do that. And um and then that can take away this sense of like this warrior sense of facing everything and standing boldly, saying whatever needs to be said. And I mean, that the space of a warrior is a dangerous space, right? The space of just bold fucking truth facing and truth telling is one that can hurt many people, hurt many people's feelings. And so anyway, what I was saying is like these places that men used to be able to go to be called into a path of honor and brotherhood, they're being changed. They're being slowly, they're eroding um, in different ways. So yeah, it's I take it on as something that I feel it as my responsibility to be a force in helping to create these opportunities for men to reclaim their natural wealth. You know.
That's a great stand you're making. Man. I feel very, yeah, I feel honored in it, and also instantly feel like fuck. I gotta raise the level. I gotta be on par there as well. It's a very
Yeah,
great. It's a great place to be in.
a worthy challenge.
A great calling.
Yeah. So to be continued, Hans.
Be continued. Let's do this.